Welcome back to our Derailers at Work series. I am your host, Sarah Wallace. You're listening to the Enneagram at Work podcast. And last week we covered kind of a current event, current news, Enneagram in the news episode regarding a Psychology Today article. So if you have not listened to that one, you'll have to catch that one. But prior to that, we covered Derailers for the type 1, the type 2, and the type 3. Today, we're mixing it up and we're doing the type 6. We're going to look at Enneagram type 6 derailers. So that's coming your way. I wanted to share a fun comment we got back from, or not got back, but we received from a listener about a past episode where we matched up leadership styles. And these do seem to be some of the most fun, some of the most popular. So we might have to, we'll definitely have to do another one soon. And then we might have to do more of these, sprinkle in more of these, or maybe we'll do just a full-on series or something with these. One, I think the first one we did was comparing the type 2 and the type 8 leadership style. Most recently, we compared the type 3 and the type 6 leadership style. And we had somebody reach out and say, great listen, powerful. This is a powerhouse of a team. And I replied, and then they said, funny story. My boss actually sent this episode to me. I'm a type 3. My boss is a type 6. We co-facilitate Dare to Lead group programs, which I think is so cool. I that's something I've looked into. Side note, wanting to get certified in. It's not yet open. Again, I don't know when it will be, but anyway, Dare to Lead groups together. So this was really relevant. And I thought, oh, how awesome that I got to hear from somebody in real life who listened to the episode and saw it show up in their own life. So always love to hear from you. If this happens to, not if this, but if an episode happens to hit home with you, or you recognize a real life situation, a funny story, reach out. I do. I love to hear you. You can email me directly, sarah@enneagramMBA.com, or just drop a note at enneagramMBA.com/contact. There's just a little message box you can leave a comment in. So, okay. So with that, let's look at our type 6 derailers. As a reminder, this series concept comes from the Awareness to Action Enneagram. This is content from their teaching, and I thought it would be interesting to you over here. You could call these derailers. Or they call them derailers. You could also call them blind spots at times where we kind of get off track. As a reminder, our type 6s are striving to feel secure when they walk into a room. They're typically focused on risks and threats and what might go wrong. And then, am I prepared? And do I have a plan? And do I have a contingency plan just in case that plan falls through? And so this type gets a reputation sometimes for being kind of negative, a Debbie Downer, the skeptic. But they would say, I just really care about this team, and I want to make sure we're okay. And I want to make sure we're asking these questions to make sure that we're prepared and that we're thinking things through. And so these questions are really important to a team, to a partnership, and they come from a place of care. We will also talk about how sometimes they have an inner BS monitor, and that'll show up here in just a second in one of the derailers. But they're very good at identifying deceptive logic and inauthentic people. And our 6s are really focused on group cohesion, and it can be difficult when someone new joins the team, or when new leadership comes into the team or the department or the organization, because it can feel like, I don't know, can I trust this person? I'm fine being led by them as long as I know that they have my best interests at heart, and our teams and our organization interests. And it's going to take me a while, though, to believe them and to trust them. It's very much, I will trust you once you give me a reason to trust you, and once you've kind of proven it over and over. Whereas there are some of us who are, I will trust you until you give me a reason not to trust you. So that's where our sixes are kind of coming at. And so when you know that, you can kind of see why these derailers like come up for this person. It makes sense that somebody who is moving through life with this strategy, using this strategy most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, would sometimes get derailed in these ways. And again, like I've said before, and like I will always say, any of us can have these derailers. We can get off track in these specific ways, and not all sixes are getting off track in all of these ways at all time. These are just common things to watch out for if you happen to identify as a type 6, or if you might be leading a type 6 and you see them kind of struggling. We're going to talk about derailers, and we're also going to talk about how to get back on track with a couple of tips at the very end. So derailer number 1 is they're being pessimistic. That they are known as Debbie Downer, sometimes as complaining, as being negative. Everybody's really excited about a new idea. They're the one poking holes in all the ideas. And they would say, I care about you guys. I don't want us, leaping and not having a net that will appear. I want us to think things through, but at times it can come across as focusing on the problems and what might go wrong versus the solution and what might go right. And so it can come across as complaining to other people, and maybe sometimes it is, and other times maybe that's just the perception on the receiving end. Suspicion is derailer number 2, being incredibly suspicious, incredibly skeptical, having doubt around the good of others, their motives, and their agenda. Now, a healthy dose of this is, we all need this for survival. Like, this is a survival instinct. But when it gets dialed up too high, it can maybe prevent you from being seen the way that you want to see, moving forward in your career, getting things done, being productive, working well with others, being collaborative, getting along with your new boss potentially. And so you just want to be, hey, have a healthy dose of this. We cannot tell our sixes to not doubt others or to not focus on what might go wrong, like in derailer 2, but and we'll talk about this at the end, I guess, too, but it is just, hey, you're going to think about these things, and this is okay, but also make sure that you're thinking about and considering the flip side. What might go right? What is good about this person? What do you see them doing well and right, not just all the skepticism that might become a little bit more natural. Derailer 3 is around indecision and decisiveness. Sixes can really struggle to settle on a single course of action. We also talk about them having an inner committee, and it's not necessarily mean or harsh, the voices. It's just a lot of voices. We could do this, but we could do this, or we could also do this, or what if we did this and then this happened and then that happened, and then what would we do? And so you're trying to think kind of 10 steps ahead, but you have no idea what even the next step is going to actually reveal. And so it's not a hugely, it's just not a great use of your time to try and think 10 steps ahead. I get it. And I also can catch myself doing that even as a 7. Like, this is probably my derailer out of all of these. The trying to anticipate people's actions. But when you do that, it does make decision making more difficult, because it's like, oh, well, if that happened, but then if this happened, but if that didn't happen, then we'd do that. And you can just paralysis analysis, you can spiral, you can drive yourself crazy. You can make things so much harder on yourself. So we'll talk about what to do with that at the end. Combativeness is the 4th derailer for our type 4s. And sometimes they may use combativeness to feel certain. They might use this questioning to kind of test what's being said and who's saying it. They do have that tendency to be devil's advocate, questioning change, questioning outsiders. And again, this is a natural, I think, survival instinct that hopefully we all have a touch of, right? We don't want to be so naive. People are taking advantage of us. We're, missing out on things. We're wreaking havoc and making wrong decisions without any information, right? There's a way to dial it in depending on the situation, who's in front of you. But this tends to be something that can get sixes in trouble at work, in their career advancement, in their coworker relationships, in the relationship with their manager. So just being aware of that. And then last but not least, has a little to do with that last derailer, but it's this idea of dog with a bone syndrome, where they will just have this relentless, I'm not going to let go of this bone, persistence and making their point of view heard, and winning approval for their ideas. I absolutely do not think we should move forward on this. This is a bad decision, but these are the reasons why. And then leadership may decide to move forward. And then they might still persist on making sure that it's known that they don't think this is a good idea. And again, a healthy dose of this is you bring conviction, you bring passion. We need these, different voices at the table. But once the decision has been made, there usually comes that time where you got to let the bone go and move on to the next one, let that go. But that can be difficult. And what's interesting is that sixes can have such conviction in the right thing to do, or the we're going to get run over, or this is a huge mistake. They can feel very confident. It can be so clear what to do, what not to do in some of these situations. But when it comes to themselves, trusting themselves, having confidence in their decisions, they can really struggle with self-doubt. And that's where that kind of the other side of that indecision can come into play. So, we'll tease sixes sometimes that they do not want anybody to tell them what to do. But also, I just wish someone would tell me what to do. So, it's again, kind of that push-pull. So getting back on track, I got 4 ideas for you here. So one is trusting your own judgment and experience. Avoid believing that some authority figure or system or the company has more insight than you actually need. Most of the time, you have all the information you need to make a decision, to move forward, and it is just trusting and believing in yourself. Breathe and take action is tip number 2 for getting back on track. When you feel frozen by doubt or indecision as a type 6, remind yourself that being uncertain is normal. We will never have 100% certainty. It is absolutely a part of life that we will be stepping forward into the unknown, not knowing what to expect, maybe having an inkling, but then it turns out to not even be that. That's normal. Fear does not have to completely disappear before you take action. I think that's a really important reminder for a lot of us, not just our sixes. Use your own skills and competence to take initiative. Trust in the experience that you have, the beliefs that you have, the insights that you have, that you can take action and be proactive. You don't have to wait to be reactive. You don't have to think it through another week. You don't need one more piece of information necessarily. Be proactive now. Start taking action. And whereas some people need to slow down and be a little bit more thoughtful, our sixes could move forward and kind of figure out things along the way. There's that saying, action creates clarity. This is very true. This would be a great mantra for our sixes. And then lastly, focus on what you want just as much as you are focusing on what you don't want. So look for ways to start thinking about what might go right along with what might go wrong. Now, to say, just forget about what might go wrong. Just forget about, what you don't want to have happen, the worries that you have. I mean, I think all sixes would think, oh, sure. Why didn't I think of that? Right? It's like, okay, if I could, I would stop. And so you're not going to be able to stop having those thoughts. But what you do have control over is incorporating the other side of it. What might go right? What do you want? Asking those questions, thinking about spending time, just as much time or at least some time thinking about those things as well. I heard somebody say spend time thinking about worst case scenario, best case scenario, and then what's most likely to happen. Spend time thinking about all three of those. So that might also be helpful. These are things that we talk about in our workshops. We look at how can we bring some self-awareness to the blind spots we have. How can we help our teams that we are leading uncover their blind spots, work through their blind spots? How can we be a supportive teammate? How can we understand where someone else is coming from who might be driving us crazy with some of these derailers or blind spots, but we can understand where they're coming from. We might be able to approach the conversation a bit differently, that's more effective, that's more productive, that allows us to get through conflict in a quicker, maybe healthier way. These are all things that we talk about using the Enneagram, applying it to our self-awareness, our team dynamics, our department dynamics inside our Enneagram MBA workshop. So if this is something you're interested in bringing to your team, your department, another department, getting another department on board here, I'm going to invite you to check out our workshop options over at enneagrammba.com. Typically, a great starting point is our full day, where we have a chance to cover lay a solid foundation for the Enneagram. Sometimes, though, that's not possible. So we have half day, we have 2 hour, and we serve teams, we serve executive leadership teams, we serve entire departments, and there's different things that we can do with different groups coming at these things from different angles so that they're very applicable. But I'm going to invite you to see those options, enneagrammba.com. If you have any additional comments as a type 6 of what you would add to this, a real life example, something funny, something I missed or got wrong, I want to hear from you. Let me know. enneagrammba.com/contact. You can drop me a line over there. Let me know what you're taking away from this episode, or something else I could share with our listeners in a future episode. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you in the next one.